Powerful words from Liz Stein. Joining us now is Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee. And Jess Michaels is with us, a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. She was one of several survivors who attended the State of the Union tonight. Welcome to you both. Jess, what is your reaction from the State of the Union tonight? I myself was thinking the president would not miss the opportunity to acknowledge you all, to lift you up, if for any other reason that it would be good optics for him to do so. And I was shocked that it never came up.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, for having us here. It was shocking and not unexpected. And still, even though it was not unexpected that he would avoid this issue like he does every single opportunity that he's given, he avoids it. It's still painful, and it is still living through a national gaslighting of this very, very, very serious crime and cover-up of a crime.
Well, and it comes, Congressman, as we have new reporting about this actions of this Department of Justice, who it is that they are protecting. Can you talk us through what oversight is anticipating as your next course of action?
Yeah, it's important to remember, Donald Trump spent all of the campaign in 2024 talking about the Epstein files, the need to release the Epstein files, to release the so-called Epstein list. That all changed somewhere around May of 2025 when Pam Bondi walked into the Oval Office and told him that you, Mr. President, are in the Epstein files. We know he's in the files thousands of times. As we learned this week, there are some very specific allegation that Donald Trump engaged in sexual abuse of a minor. That was redacted, removed, not revealed to the American people the way that the law required. Democrats on the Oversight Committee have launched an investigation of that. We're not going to let up until we learn exactly what happened, whether that allegation was investigated the way that it should have been, whether there needs to be additional investigation of it, and why the files related to it have been hidden from the American people.
Tonight was a show on many levels. But I think on a very deep level for a lot of Americans, it was very disappointing because I think a lot of Americans, in their heart of hearts, Ms. Michaels, was hoping that there would be some acknowledgement. But those of us in the political space, we've talked about this leading into the night, knew that it wouldn't. He wouldn't do it. In the eyes of this administration, you don't exist. We had survivors in the halls of Congress, in a committee room, ignored by Pam Bondi. You have the president in the halls of Congress speaking to the country with survivors in the room, ignored. And today we have the disturbing news regarding missing Epstein files that include interviews with an alleged Trump accuser, a woman who came forward in July 2019 to accuse Jeffrey Epstein of assaulting and raping her several times in the 1980s, beginning when she was just 13. There's also a Trump accuser featured in the Epstein files. Now, the White House has responded in, saying the White House continues to claim that Donald Trump has been exonerated. My question is, exonerated for something in which you don't exist. And
that's a great way to put it.
And that's where we are.
Yeah, the silence spoke volumes. The silence spoke volumes.
How difficult is that for you in that chamber? And I appreciate the congressman and those other members who brought survivors to the chamber tonight. I'm really grateful for that because it was important that you be there and it was important for them to do it. But when you're sitting there and 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours go by and nothing, how empty does that make you feel?
I hate to even give an ounce of emotion to it, but it still is painful to be ignored and to be silenced and to be expected to move on. And that is the very typical experience of many millions of sexual assault survivors, one. But there actually was also another opportunity. I mean, all of the survivors have been advocating for months. We did help get an act of Congress, a bipartisan vote on the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I mean, that was an accomplishment that every American could celebrate, right? That was never brought up as part of this State of the Union. You know, there were opportunities, and they weren't taken, and it is noted.
It is noted. Congressman, given Jess's comments, what did come up was children in this particular way from the president tonight. Take a listen to him.
Together, we're building a nation where every child has the chance to reach higher and go further, where government answers to the people, not the powerful, and where the interests of hardworking American citizens are always our first and ultimate concern. That is the debt we owe to the heroes who came before us, and that is the promise we must keep to America for our 250th year.
Congressman, the words are true. This is a government that is not acting them out.
Yeah, that's right. We heard a president tonight who is ensconced in Washington, focused on building his golden ball, surrounded by yes men and women who either seems not to know or not to care about the struggles of hardworking Americans. He said we're in a golden era with a roaring economy. That would be news to the 10 million Americans who are losing their health care coverage because of his big, ugly bill. It'd be news to hardworking American families who are paying $2,000 extra on average every year because of his tariffs and other policies. He gave not one single concrete proposal tonight to address those very real issues that Americans are dealing with. He's living in a fantasy land, a golden fantasy land.
We're going to leave it there. Congressman James Walkinshaw and Jess Michaels, thank you both for your time this evening. Up next, folks, we will discuss Trump's racist, anti-immigrant remarks tonight and the House Democrat who called out the president before the address even began. We'll be right back.